Okay, in this series, I'm going to take a little break from all the other kind of things I've been doing. I'm not totally into film scores like people think I am. I'm literally, that's just one genre of things I studied. They're harmonic structures. And after a while, you know, I've always wanted to do stuff like this more because I actually favor past master music over film scores. And I may lose followers over this, but this is my true interest, is actually music that actually has come from masterworks. So that is master composers. I'm gonna do mostly late 19th century stuff and 20th century stuff that's rarely covered. So we're gonna use Ralph Vaughan Williams in this instance because we're gonna learn that he exposes modality just like film score guys do. And the only difference is that people like Ralph Vaughan Williams or Debussy or somebody were doing stuff like that way before film score guys, modern film score guys. So let's listen to this first. We're going to do all 6 movements. It's actually a very beautiful piece. Ralph Vaughan Williams is one of those guys who can cross over between very dissonant music and very just straightforward tonal music like this. So what's the first thing I'm going to do when I'm looking at this score here? What is the tonal center? Because this is not major and minor, functional major minor anymore. So what is he doing here? This is the first thing I ask myself when I'm studying composers that are late 19th century, 20th century music. So we got an A minor 7th here, and then a D major chord, followed by a D major chord. So people might say, well, it's A minor. No, well, I'll show you why this is not A minor. We're gonna do this little test here. Let me take that out of there and say, what does your ear hear? Okay, what does the ear hear as the center? Because this is important. Not everything starts on a tonic. So, like as the 1 chord. So, we got an A minor 7th and a D major chord. So, I'll go ahead and circle those. Those are our 2 choices, and you could look all the way up through many bars until we go to an F chord. These are our only choices. So we got this A minor 7th chord, and then a D major chord. So for me, it sounds like it's the D's the tonal center, okay? And as if it's D mixolydian. So let me play through the first few bars. I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. So so that it sounds like it's literally starting on the 5 chord, and that sounds like our tonal center, D mixolydian. Okay, if you actually sit there and hum it as you're listening to it, that's what you'll get. So D mixolydian, and it's starting on the 5 chord of D mixolydian. This is no different than, like, if you're thinking about a waltz, oftentimes they'll start on the 5 chord, the dominant chord, and do something like this as an intro. and then go into their waltz. That's not in D or E mixolydian. It just started on the dominant, okay? So same concept is applying here. We don't need to make it any more complicated than that. 5, 7, 1. Minor 5, flat 7, 1. So D mixolydian. I'm going to completely ignore the cello parts for the most part. That's what we're hearing as our center. D mixolydian. Okay, so we'll go ahead and leave it at that. That's our tonal center, D mixolydian. So I'm going to go ahead and circle that D note and say that's our home plate for this particular passage. Now, with music that's 19th century and 20th century later, you have to be very on the lookout for temporary use of modes. Okay, just temporary. So we're going to say D mixolydian. Okay, not D major, not A minor, D mixolydian. So what you want to start doing here is the writing in the Roman numerals, and it just alternates between the minor 5 with the flat 7 and 1 for quite a while. I'm just going to totally ignore the cello part unless some kind of accidental comes in. So usually you could get the harmony from the accompaniment most of the time. So let me write in D mixolydian here. Sometimes you may need to rely on some kind of melodic content to get the full context, but in this case we don't. So let me go ahead and move this here and then fill in the rest of the Roman numerals until we get to our first accidental. Okay, there we go. So let's go ahead and go down to the bottom and see what's going on with that accidental. Just one second. Scroll down. So here, if you look at this, well, first let me fill in this part. I forgot that. That's just the 1 and then the 5, minor 5, flat 7 of D mixolydian. Okay, now here's a cool move. He does a chromatic median on the next chord. There's a little add 6 in the arpeggio, but F major. So flat 3, chromatic median, back to the 1 chord, D major in the next bar. So borrowed chords in mixolydian, that's completely feasible. I'm just filling out the rest here. So remember, you can use borrowed chords within modes. You could borrow from other modes, modal interchange. So let me reduce this. This is why I put learn from the masters, is because you could take this same harmonic sequence and or these same chord structures and use these same 3 chords. Let me just do something using these same 3 chords, create my learn from the masters. Well, create something from it, write a little melody. That's what I'll just improvise something. Not the same exact chord setup that he used, but I'm still using the same 3 chords that he used. So this is how you learn from masters. You actually borrow from them. So let's move on to the next page. It's the same setup. He uses the alternation between the minor 5, flat 7, 1 for quite a while. Very, very mixolydian-ish sound. And we'll just kind of stick it in like that. And that way we don't have to keep writing in Roman numerals. So on this little shift, when he goes to the C major chord, he changes the tonality on us, and it sounds very obscured at this point. So let's go ahead and figure out what's going on here. Now, obscuring tonality is a big part of late 1900s, 20th century music from classical masters. Obscuring tonality, it's intentional. And this is actually something, if you want to be like a film composer, that you might want to learn, is to obscure it, because you don't have, it makes it sound like there's no destination right here. It literally kind of loses it. Center shift to what though? So moving this into position just to get it out of the way. So you might want to write in the chords you see first. We see a C minor, an A minor, just really quick, and then an E minor. I'm not going on off of any non-harmonic tones. I'm just looking at the bass chords here. C major. So all these chords occur within D mixolydian, but it no longer sounds like it when we'll listen back to it with this shown here, and it doesn't sound like D mixolydian anymore. It sounds kind of obscured, and the reason is because here's our chord changes. Okay. C, A minor, E. Okay, so what's going on here? If I keep repeating this over and over again or something, and use that, it's definitely got that obscured Lydian sound that is not relying on Lydian 1 and 2. Here's something, if I keep repeating that, okay? So, I just improvised. For keyboard players, please forgive me, I'm not a keyboard player. So that's definitely C Lydian there. And remember, C Lydian does not have to revolve around the 1 and the 2 like film composers love to do. You could use it for obscurity. See, I'm just using the C Lydian 1 and 2 in every time after I modulated, and I'm improvising these in. But you don't need to rely on that all the time. You can use these obscure kind of moves like this. Let me do a similar modulation shift. See, the tonality sounds slightly obscured when I do it like that. So that's a really good way to use Lydian, because it doesn't really want to pull to the center very hard. So it kind of leaves an obscurity there to where there's no finality, which is a good move to use when you want to create drama and leave the sense of finality for later, okay, by either modulating or creating some kind of cadence. So let's take that out. I'm going to put C Lydian there and just write in the chords. So Lydian 1, Lydian 6, and Lydian 3. This is, and mind you, this is my own personal way of viewing this piece, okay? When you start getting into the later tonality stuff, 20th century and stuff, it becomes very obscure that there's more than one way to look at something. I'm showing you the way I personally would look at this. So we got Lydian 1 on the C. Now we got this accidental introduced. It looks like some kind of pivot to that F chord. C major is related to the F chord. I'm not going to talk about pivot chords if you don't really understand that. This video is probably not for you. So it looks like, to me, this looks like it's, because I see the A minor as the final chord to come to rest, it's almost like it's moving towards A minor. So we'll do as we did before. We're going to, that looks like where the phrase ends, and you can hear it in the music, and we're going to replay it. But you can hear that the phrase coming to an end there, the little obscure area here between C Lydian and possibly an A shift towards Aeolian or minor. So again, what this looks like to me after I fill in the chords here is it's working its way towards the A minor chord or Aeolian. This is almost like a 6-4-1 move in Aeolian, especially when it comes to rest on the final chord. It's almost like that. That's why I say almost, because trying to place this within a key is kind of tough here, because like I said, later composers are actually way more obscure in their tonality intentionally, because they were tired of, you know, strong cadences and always predictability of such strong cadences. So if I play the chord sequence, see how it wants to land on that A minor, that particular sequence he does there, and that's exactly what he does. So we do have the F natural, but here's something that Vaughan Williams does a lot, is these untraditional skips. Like that in the melodic content, or you know, almost like they're slightly pentatonic, and often he does use pentatonic scales, but be on the lookout. Sometimes he's not as diatonic and using those kind of traditional melodic rules. So that's something else to watch for when you're studying Ralph Vaughan Williams. So there's that harmonic sequence, that shift when the F occurs, D minor, A minor. It sounds like it wants to go to A minor. So let's start on the C area where it was C Lydian. Okay. Work towards A minor. Very obscured section. And then and it's probably just he intended that because it's later 20th century composers were not at all interested in functional harmony. So temporary modal use. So I'll go ahead and stick the I'm going to just go ahead and call this Aeolian. You know, other people may see it differently, but this is my ear is hearing that pull towards that A minor chord. However, I'll show you in a second that he's only using that A minor temporarily, that pull towards it, because of this F sharp up here reintroduced. Now we're not going to call this A Dorian because of that. It's him working more towards back to that D Mixolydian kind of sound. Okay. So that's what we'll put in there. And now the ending chord is, the ending here is probably going to be the most confusing to people. So, well, a lot of it may be if you don't know modality and pivot chords and I'm not writing any of that stuff out. I'm just, let me put, so that's the 5. There's no 7th on that one. Now here's the 5 with the 7 again, outlined in an arpeggio. Okay. And so now the next section, we're going to skip to the next page because I see it on the next page. It's much easier to explain this part right here on the next page. Okay. And if I go, let me flip it over. Hold on one second. If I go to this and look at this area here, it started in the previous bar. It's syncopation. But I'm looking at, if I look at all the notes, what I see is a D dominant 11th chord. Okay, and I'll show you why in a second, why I'm seeing this. Okay. If I play all the notes involved in this particular area, let's just do the last time it happens. What all notes occurred there? 7, 9, 11. A flat 7, 9, 11. It's like a dominant 11th without the 3rd on the D. Very common voicing. Okay. So 11th chords were used in classical music. So now we're back to D Mixolydian, kind of. And that's his return point. The one chord does not have any unaltered tones, the last chord in the piece. So it's just a D, flat out D major chord outlined in arpeggio with a little harmonic in the cello. So that ending chord. So we're done. Let's re-listen to it with all our markings that we put in here. And so enjoy. This is how I would personally mark this piece. I'm not going to, I skipped a lot of steps in functional harmony marking, and that's okay because I know what I know what I'm hearing. I wrote whether it was on the shifts, Aeolian, Lydian, Mixolydian, whatever. That's good enough for me, and the Roman numerals that follow it. I don't need to put all the extra stuff in there. This is just personal markings that I would do to say, well, this is definitely a piece revolving around Mixolydian.